And let's move on now to this series because the Spurs, they dominated the regular season series 3-1. Obviously, one of those games coming in the NBA Cup, the in-season tournament. One of those games also where the Thunder didn't really play a lot of their guys. That being said, San Antonio, the Victor Wembanyama problem is something that no team has been able to figure out at this point in the season, right? He just completely changes the Thunder's style of offense, right? We'll talk about SGA in 1 second. SGA might not be affected by Victor Wembanyama. He's had pretty good success in this series, but other players have completely fallen off against Wemby, right? He's just really hard to play when you have a small ball lineup out there, which the Thunder often like to run. He can overpower these smaller defenders offensively as well. SGA, on the other hand, right? The Spurs are probably going to use a combination of Stephon Castle on him with, help from Victor Wembanyama, at the rim, right? SGA is still capable of making shots and having huge scoring games because he's, relies on that mid-range. What's going to be taken away from him is getting all the way to the rim. He's not going to be able to get easy layups because Wemby is just there to, deny those opportunities. But the mid-range shot, right? To be able to shoot 50% on, mid-range shots as a guard is just a ridiculous, ability. The fact that's why he's the MVP. You can say whatever you want about the push-offs. I hate watching SGA play. He's one of the most annoying players to watch. But give him credit because he's figured out a way to manipulate the system and become one of the best scorers of all time. In terms of just pure shot quality, 50% on mid-range shots, that's still going to be an option because Wemby's going to be at the rim. He might have to shoot higher arcers. He might, his shot might be thrown off a little bit, but getting to the little step back 15, 16 footer is still going to work for SGA. But the role players are, what's going to make or break this series. Because, Wemby's not going to score as many points as SGA, but what he doesn't score, he's going to make up on the defensive end in a way that's probably bigger than the total offensive output that SGA is going to bring to the floor, right? And the Spurs are going to control the paint, right? They're going to, if they keep shooting well, 40% from three, I think the Spurs are going to win this series. They got to limit turnovers. Truly, I think the series is won in transition because the Thunder don't want to go up against a set defense in the San Antonio Spurs with Victor Wembanyama at the rim, right? We've talked about this before, but the fact that they have Wemby at the rim allows the guards and the wings that are great on-ball defenders, but they're even better when they have the ability and the freedom to, run ball traps. They have the freedom to stunt and recover, be aggressive, dive into the handles of an SGA or, whoever. Jalen Williams, J-Dub will be back in this series for Game 1 tonight at least. So that'll be, an interesting dynamic because he hasn't been around for these playoffs. I don't remember the season series on whether, Jalen Williams played in all of those. I don't quite remember. But, right, that's going to be another player that the Spurs are going to have to handle. But the ability to have Wemby behind you and know that you have that protection if you make a mistake allows them to be more aggressive and actually makes it harder to run offense against them, right? But the transition, right? That's the Thunder side, right? For the Spurs, they don't want to go up against the Thunder set defense. Chet Holmgren is a rim protector, of course. He's not to the level of Victor Wembanyama, but he's definitely a defensive weapon back there, right? So you don't want to go up against him. But more importantly, the guards, the wings, Lou Dort's, the Cason Wallace's of the world, right? Even SGA to a little bit of a degree can just be a lockdown all on-ball defender. Those are the players that if you have these young guards in, a Stephon Castle, in a, why am I forgetting his first name? Harper, right? If you're those two guys, right, you don't want to, Dylan Harper, right? You don't want to go up against those guys because you're probably not, you really haven't faced, now the Wolves are a good defensive team, but you haven't faced the on-ball defense that the Thunder are going to throw at you in a while. So having, having those two guys on the floor makes it really difficult, right? The live ball turnovers are going to be a problem for some of your young guards that have really never played in the playoffs, right? This is going to be their third series ever. And we talked about the first series, not a big test for the Timberwolves, or for the Spurs rather, against the Blazers. Then you get to the second series and you have a hobbled Anthony Edwards, you have a hobbled, obviously, Dante DiVincenzo goes out, right, in the first round series, and he's not available, right? So they were banged up, right? So this is going to be their first test, and it's a really tough test when you have the role wing defenders that the Thunder have, right? For the Thunder, right, you just got to push that pace, get Wemby out of the paint, go ahead before he's set, right, and hit your open threes, which they've done a good job against, right? But I just think, you're going to need more from Chet Holmgren as well. You cannot have him being brutally outplayed by Victor Wembanyama, because you don't want Wemby to be able to cover the difference on both ends of the floor between SGA's offense and Chet Holmgren's offense with just one player. You have to get more production from your second tier or maybe third tier player in Chet Holmgren. That's how you're going to win this series if you're the Thunder. And ultimately, I think the Thunder are going to win, because I just think the experience level, I know the Spurs won the regular season series, and if the Spurs have to dominate the Wemby series, but other than that, I really do think that the Thunder have some advantages that they're going to be able to get to. Funny enough, I think this is going to be a 6-game series, but it's closer. Like, usually when it's a really close coin flip, you go 7. But for some reason, I think it's going to be a 6-game series, but I don't really know who's going to win. I think it'll either be Spurs in 6 or Thunder in 6. And, we'll see what happens tonight. Whoever wins this game, it's going to have obviously it's just one game, and we could get a bounce back in game 2. But I really do think that if the Spurs are able to come out and win this game on the road, that will really set the tone for this entire series. So I'm going to pick Thunder in 6, but, give me the ability to change my mind if needed, because I really do think it could go either way.